Hey, I'm John Carrington, and you're watching Top of the Morning. We have a lot of legends in this world, and I have a living legend with me today, Mr. Leon Bailey. Yeah, he won a wrestling championship back in 1964. And there's a story that's going to be put into a book, and you're going to be some of the first people to find out about it. Why? Because you're watching Top of the Morning. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more of Top of the Morning. Hey, welcome to Top of the Morning. I'm John Carrington, and I have some interesting guests for you today. In fact, I have with me Mr. Leon Bailey, who's one of the first black coaches in the military schools, in the military academies, and he's going to talk about what he does in the area of promoting his new book. Leon Bailey. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Welcome to Top of the Morning. And sir, you're writing a book. What's the title of the book?
The title of the book is Leon Bailey, The Dream.
The Dream.
Yeah, Leon Bailey, The Dream.
The Dream. And you brought me a autographed picture of you in the heyday wrestling. This is Leon Bailey. He was a threat to pin you from any place on the mat. In fact, even before the whistle blew, he was ready to pin you. Leon Bailey, talk about your career in wrestling.
Well, my career in wrestling, can I give you a little background?
Yeah, please.
To the extent, where it really started. I would say that it started when I lived in Cherry Hill. I used to live in Cherry Hill.
I used to wrestle and fight in Cherry Hill too.
That's what my book started. Excuse me. But, in Cherry Hill, where my mother moved just before the paving was in Cherry Hill. And she was a domestic, and she raised 6 children. And one thing she always told us is how important education was. And we stayed in Cherry Hill from 1944 to the period of 1955. So in 55 is when the wrestling career really started, because we moved from Cherry Hill and we went to East Baltimore. And East Baltimore gives you a location of Central Avenue and Fayette Street. But right around the corner from Central Avenue and Fayette Street was this little building, the McKim Community Center. McKim Community Center, and that's where it got started. My interest in wrestling was right there. I was 12 years old at the time, and they had just started a wrestling team. And I was like 12 years old, running around the projects, running around the streets, and I got interested in wrestling, and I would say that I was on the first wrestling team at McKim Center. And really, being the first on that team has really taken me to so many other roads, as far as wrestling is concerned, as far as me as an individual and a person, is concerned, Yeah, John, I have something I want to correct you with. I was a wrestling coach for the Navy, but my wrestling started in 1963 to 1965. But my coaching didn't start until 1965. And I had to go back a little bit to bring you forward so you'll understand how that came about. When I started wrestling in 1963, I wrestled for Commander Josiah Henson, who was an Olympic wrestler bronze medal winner in the 1954 Olympics. So wrestling with undercoach Commander Henson at Quonset Point, Rhode Island. He had orders to try to establish a wrestling team at Quonset Point, Rhode Island. So during that period of time, I was at the base, and I had been trying to wrestle since 1962, since I became, joined the Navy. Of course, that's what I really honestly joined the Navy for, is to wrestle and box for the Navy. Again, let me go back just a little bit and then come forward, is the fact that when I wrestled at McKim, I wrestled at McKim for some years, and then went to high school and also wrestled at high school. And I wrestled under Coach Charlie Robinson. Charlie Robinson, he was a good coach, a good disciplinarian.
It was Edmondson, right?
Carver Vocational Technical High School. And wrestling at Carver, while I was at Carver, I wrestled, I boxed, and I ran cross country also. And during that period of time, when I was saying I boxed with Mr. Mac Lewis. Mr. Mac Lewis.
He's a legend.
Yeah, and give you a location that was in East Baltimore at Broadway and Eagle Street. But when it was time to graduate, I wanted to wrestle for the Navy. I wanted to wrestle and box for the United States Navy. And I told the recruiter that's what I wanted to come in the Navy for. I didn't want to be a captain. I didn't want to be a
gunnery sergeant
or anything like that. Not a gunnery sergeant, but a bosun mate or anything like that. All I wanted to do was wrestle. And so when being so naive, I went to boot camp, and when going to boot camp, you don't take no boxing gloves and wrestling and stuff like that. That's what I took. But I found out the next day that you had to ship it back home.
Oh.
You had to ship it back home. But again, going through boot camp, and 6 weeks of boot camp, and then getting my first orders. My first orders were to Walter Reed Army Hospital, right at Washington, D.C. I was only 45 miles away from home. But anyway, being stationed at Walter Reed, I was still looking for the opportunity to wrestle and box for the Navy. And it took me a while to even get information about boxing and wrestling. And I got some information that there was a boxing team at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Okay, so that was my opportunity. I was kind of like pumped up then. I'm like pumped up that now is my chance, something I've been looking for. But I had to catch the bus to get to Bethesda Naval Hospital. And being just out of boot camp, I didn't have transportation. But I did go to Bethesda to try to go out to trial for the wrestling team. But I never went back because I didn't have transportation. Right. I didn't have money. And so my duties were still at Walter Reed. So I stayed to Walter Reed for a year and a half. Then my orders came. And they shipped me north to Quonset Point, Rhode Island, and I was attached to the USS Essex CVS-9. Here we go again, and I tell you about my story being so religious and how God was taking care of me and putting me in the right places, in the right hands of the people that could do something for me. The point I'm getting at is when I reported to Quonset Point, Rhode Island, the USS Essex was in the Mediterranean, and it wasn't due back until December of '63.
Okay.
So during that period of time of being at the base, what the military says you're in transit barracks. Even though you're in transit barracks, you're still attached to the ship.
That's right.
So waiting for the ship to come back, you had certain duties that you had to do. One day it might be picking up paper, unloading trucks, so forth and so on, working over to the NCO club. But what happened is one day I had orders to go to the gymnasium. I had orders to go to the gymnasium. That was my day of work. So I walked into the gymnasium and I met first class petty officer Jim Hill. Now Jim Hill was on the basketball team, but he was a first class petty officer, so he was in charge of the gym.
While you're talking about the gym, we have a gymnasium here on top aboard the USS Constellation. We have a school group touring the USS Constellation here in Baltimore's beautiful Inner Harbor. So if you hear noise in the background, folks, it's not that we're at the gym, we are in the gym. At least the kids think the gym. Now you were saying you were in the gymnasium. What happened?
Yeah. When I reported to the gymnasium, the petty officer Jim Hill told me what he wanted me to do: clean the bathroom, clean the gym floor. And I will bring up something. If you know anything about the military's gymnasiums, they are clean. The floors are clean. They look like glass. But that was my job. I had to get a big mop. One of those mops was almost 4 feet wide, and go down the floor. And I'm going down the floor, mopping, and I'm naturally looking around, and I looked up, and there was a sign, and the sign said "wrestlers needed," and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, oh my goodness, So I dropped the mop, ran to First Class Petty Officer Hill, and I asked him what I had to do to get on the team, So he said that I had to report back after 4 o'clock. After I finished my work, I had to do my work, So what happened? I went back to my barracks, and I think it was maybe 4 o'clock, whatever it may be. I came back to join the wrestling team. Yeah. And that's when I met Commander Josiah Henson.
Wow.
And meeting the commander and about 70-some other wrestlers, sailors and Marines.
Wow.
He wanted to know, about our background. What made you want to wrestle? What made you come out for the team? I informed him that, I wrestled for high school, wrestled for McKim, and everything. And from there, it's like history. I came out for the team, I practiced, and we were informed that some of the colleges that we were going to wrestle up in New England, this is the New England area, that it would be like Harvard University, Brown University, Boston College. Serious teams, right. And New York Athletic Club, and that's when it started, 1963 for the Navy, wrestling for the Navy in 1963.
I'm curious, those first teams that they had in Rhode Island, were they good enough to compete at that level?
Yes, they were. I just want to answer that question. Yes, if we were not able to compete, I don't think the commander would have put us out there to represent the Navy. Okay. And that's something that I really totally enjoy, to the extent I try to explain it to people, but you have to have that feeling, to the extent that you're representing, or I was representing, the United States Navy. So that meant that when I was on the mat, to me it was like a mission. I had to win. Not that I always won. But that's what I had in mind. That was my job. I worked, I sweat, I ran. And the whole period of time that I was in the Navy and wrestled for the Navy, I was never late, never missed a practice or anything like that,
All right, well, we're going to take a short break because I need one.
Yes, sir.
that took the energy out of me. And we'll be right back with more of Top of the Morning. the Morning. I'm John Carrington, and my guest is Mr. Leon Bailey, and he has an exciting career in wrestling. Talk a little bit about your transition from being a wrestler to being a coach. Talk about that for a moment here.
Well, what happened, my transition was that, I was wrestling, wrestled for the Navy. But what happened, how I became a coach, was that Commander Henson was promoted to captain. And when he was promoted to captain, it was a sad day for the whole team because we thought we was going to lose Commander Henson. But what we found out later, that Commander Henson thought enough of me to write a letter to my commanding officer and request that I be the next coach.
Beautiful.
So I became the next coach in 1965. Wow. In 1965. That's that period of time.
In '64, you won the individual championship for New England.
Yes, I did. In 1964, I won the New England State AAU Wrestling Championship.
Wow.
And it was 100 entries into my class of wrestling that year. But with that, talking about the 1964 championship that I won, I also had an invitation to the 1964 Olympic trials. I had an invitation to the 64 Olympic trials, and with that, how that came about, winning that championship, I wrestled 5 matches that day. I wrestled 5 matches, and actually wrestled 5 matches injured, because the first match that I had, I went down for a takedown and busted my knee. And busting my knee, it hurt, but I continued to wrestle. You know how we are. We
That's
just keep on going.
Macho.
Right. So I wrestled 5 matches with a busted knee. But what happened when we had the wrestle off for first or second place, the officials came and asked that I want to wrestle. Because if I said no, then I forfeit the match and I would be second place. So I told the officials, yes, I wanted to wrestle. I wanted to wrestle. And we went out, they blew the whistle, and that was it. And I think that was the fastest pin that I had of the match. 5 matches, I pinned 3 opponents, and the other 2 were decisions. But from that, because, it just brought, tears to my eyes, even now,
Emotional.
Talk about what I had to go through. It's still touching to me. And winning the championship for the United States Navy, which made me very proud, but also my commanding officer was very proud also. And I received a letter of commendation from the United States Navy, and you can read that or just glance at it, from the United States Navy on my championship. Yeah, I was, I kind of got a little bit emotional, but when I just keep thinking about what I had to go through, the years it took me to start wrestling for the Navy. But I go back to when I first started again at McKenna. When we used to go to places like Dundalk, Sparrows Point, and wrestle, and you would hear no niggers, but that didn't stop or deter me from wanting to wrestle, and then wrestling for the Navy, and wrestling 2 years for the Navy in Quonset Point, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, 63 to 65. I never wrestled a black opponent, never saw a black opponent, but with that, I have a letter that I received 2 years ago, a year ago, 2014, in 2014, that I was the first African American to win the New England State Championship.
Wow.
First African American to win the New England State Championship.
Thank you for representing.
Not only that, I also received this week a letter from Mark Palmer, who is a wrestling historian, who also did some research and states the fact that during that period of time that I won the championship in 1964, that he just put it in plain English. You were a trailblazer.
Okay.
Because there weren't any blacks, there weren't that many black role models for wrestling. You know, so it makes me feel good, you know, to the extent of what I had to go through or what I have accomplished, but I also don't take for granted that it wasn't without the spiritual part of it, God taking me by the hand and leading me to where I was, you know, where I am today. You know, if you ask any other military person or military persons, do you know anybody that ever went into the military just to wrestle and box? The questions I come up with is no. But that's all I wanted to do. And thank God that I was able to.
Hallelujah.
Right.
Well, I applaud you, man. I want to thank you for, number one, serving our country, and number two, for blazing the trail for me. I wrestled in high school and college, and I came in fourth in the AAUs, and all 12 of the people in my category couldn't beat me except the top 3. You had to compete against 100 people in your weight class.
Right, that's 100 people.
My hat's off to you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more of Top of the Morning. Okay, I can just chit-chat a little. Top of the Morning. Leon Bailey, you are a trailblazer. You certainly are. Sir, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Well, closing thoughts is that I just want to say that being in the Navy was the highlight of my wrestling career, you know, and I want to really give thanks to the United States Navy as well as Commander Josiah Henson.
And that recruiter who promised you the world
Right.
and tried to show you the world, but never intended to let you wrestle.
Oh, I have one other thing though. Let's not forget this. I have a book coming out.
Okay.
Leon Bailey, The Dream.
All right, show us.
Leon Bailey, The Dream.
Okay.
And let me give you my email address. My email address, because I want everybody to read this story.
Okay.
The email address is leon.bailey22@hotmail.com. You can call me with your comments at 410-323-6299. And that's Leon Bailey, The Dream, coming soon.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Well, Leon Bailey, again, I want to thank you for being a trailblazer and thank you for being a part of Top of the Morning. And I'm John Carrington. This is Leon Bailey, and we wish you a top of the morning.
And thanks, John, for giving me this opportunity.
My pleasure. Chit chat.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, you know,
And when the book comes out, you have an autographed copy.
when the book comes out, I'm going to autograph a copy for you. And matter of fact, I'll bring it to you.
Oh man, you all right, fella. You all right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If I was 100 years younger, I'd wrestle you.
Don't try.